social media comments, or other formats played on air.
Thanks for staying with us on Beyond the Headlines with myself, Emerson. It's gone 13 after the hour 6 o'clock as the first conversation is underway. The class of 2025 celebrates one of the strongest matric performances in South Africa's history, and attention is shifting to a recurring and deeply structural problem, the question of what happens next. More than 656,000 learners pass matric, yet the country can only offer an estimated 535,000 first-year places across universities, TVET colleges, and community colleges combined for the 2026 academic year. Now, the gap leaves over 120,000 successful matriculants without an immediate place in the public post-school system. Now, even for those who do secure placement, progression is far from guaranteed. High first-year dropout rates driven by financial pressure, accommodation shortages, transport costs, and institutional mismatch continues to undermine the outcomes. Now, to unpack whether South Africa's post-school system is structurally fit for purpose and what alternatives exist beyond panic-driven university applications, we are joined by Leon Smalberger, CEO of the Academic Institute of Excellence. A very good evening to you, Leon. Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Headlines.
Good evening, Emerson. Great to be here.
Yeah, perhaps if we can start here, take us through, could you please take us through, the most common causes for the first-year dropout rates? Because sometimes we see these things happen, but in most cases, we can't really put a finger on what is really the cause.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned earlier the common ones that we all know of. Financial pressure, accommodation shortages, transportation, access to infrastructure, and possibly I think one that I don't believe gets enough attention is the institutional, or rather the qualifications that someone going into something that they are not really interested in, or as a second choice. That all contributes to a first-year dropout, but it's not a single factor. Any one of those is enough. Put them all together, and it's a really tough year for new students.
And when we look at the one that you've just mentioned now, the institutional mismatch, how common is that scenario, and what would likely be the cause? Is it perhaps, the thought of, at least let me just continue studying instead of just staying at home?
Yeah, again, the cause is a mixture of factors. One is you haven't gotten into your institution of choice. That's the first one. The second one is you were unable to make it into your qualification of choice. Your circumstances have changed, and you have forced into something which was not necessarily your first choice. And I think that is common. It is as common as a parent not understanding their child behavior, or having a legacy that they forced in their child into. So I think it's more common than we would like to admit. But again, that also adds to that terrible first-year dropout rates.
And at this point, can we safely say that South Africa is ready for the post-school system? And what can be done to ensure that the country is ready for such, and to ensure that the higher education system can be able to absorb learners into the system? Because it seems like it's a recurring trend that we see year after year, but it's worrisome as we see the record pass rate for the class of 2025.
Yeah, I think there's two facts. One is we've been seeing it year after year. So it is a recurring problem that we've not been able to fix properly. The second part is that the number grows every year, and the higher education system, or the public education system, has not kept up with the same growth. We see that the capacity remains the same as it did a couple of years ago. And lastly, we're seeing more students, which is actually a good thing, more students having passes into higher education. I mean, we're looking at 46% bachelor's passes now, 28 diploma, 13% higher certificate, all needing access to public universities, not necessarily a degree college. So, yes, we have not stayed, the system has not stayed up to date with that. And again, this is not, not a funding, not far from the funds that we have there. That has actually stayed up to date. And although we always want more funding, but
and now we're looking at, considering the young ones who are moving from high school to, into the higher education system. And I guess the reality is now starting to settle in that not everyone will be absorbed by the higher education system. Not everyone will be absorbed by the universities, the TVET colleges. But what are the available post-matric programs that, parents and learners can explore, should the programs and institutions of first choice not be available?
yeah, I think there's loads of options. My advice, I think, is to students and parents, whether you know where you're going or not, is that the answer is never a no. There's always options. I think the private sector in this case has a massive role to play in order to add that capacity to the public sector. The private higher education system has a massive role to play and has real alternatives to the traditional university. And the same goes for the further education. Never play down the value of a further education qualification, hand skills, grades, practical qualifications. Those are qualifications that we sorely need, and where students can get a good and make a good living from. So never disregard those options. I think they are very good options. And certainly a very good alternative to whatever the scenario is with anybody else.
Yeah. And, when we look at the pronouncements that are made by politicians, the speeches always sound good. The proposals and the policies, they always look good on paper until we face the realities. When we look at the 2026 academic year, how many first-year placements can the country realistically offer at the various institutions of higher learning? And is it in line with the announcement that was made by the Minister of Higher Education last year?
Yes, I think again that the space is limited. Our public institutes can only take so much, and that's around 240,000. I think what they're not seeing necessarily is the extent of the bigger picture to that. The universities, the FETs, also the private education market has massive capacity. That's the one part, and I think also it's not always feasible to look at the universities anymore as one seat equals one student. These days we have enough technology and the use of mixed methods such as a hybrid method.
Yes.
Add capacity to these institutions. We are no longer seeing the students being on campus 100% of the time. It adds capacity to any. We need to understand that one equals one, as it has been in the past. It's no longer the case, and I don't think that you call it the politicians or the people making all these announcements always understand that. Even the public universities, they've changed even their methods.
Yeah.
And as you before speaker, So yes, I don't think those figures are perfectly accurate, and I don't think we can make those additional legacy remarks of one speed equals one student anymore.
And with that being said, Leon, when we look at how the system has changed, as you alluded, there's the online learning, there's the hybrid model where students are no longer on campus full time. Are such models equipping universities and institutions in general in a sustainable way that would assist students, to begin their post high school journey all the way through what do we call this, graduation, without dropouts, so to speak?
Yeah. So yes, I think it's definitely contributed to the success, and I think that's an understatement, actually an studied factor. I mean, if we go back to our very first question, what is the cause for dropouts? It's financial pressures, accommodation, and transport. Those are some of the top ones that we've seen. A hybrid model makes sure that you don't have to always be on campus if there's no need for you to be on campus. You don't always have to stay in accommodation that's right next to campus. Perhaps you don't need to be there every day. Transportation costs get lower. Technology makes the delivery and the receiving part cheaper. And we've seen a trend. Students need to be on campus when they need to access infrastructure that they cannot access from home. These days, we all have internet connection.
Yeah.
When I go to university, classes, to listen to a lecturer explain something in theory, that can be done online. And I think that adds to the overall success.
Yeah. And I mean, as you've alluded, the models have changed. They were forced to change due to the COVID period. But when we look at, there's the transition from high school to the higher education system. And then there's also the transition from higher education institutions to the workplace. When we look at our institutions of higher learning, do they equip the students in between those transitions, both from high school as well as, from the transition from higher education to the workplace?
Yeah, I think we can always do better. The institutes can always do better. Industry is constantly saying to us that they battling to find talent. We've got a large unemployment figure, but we can always do. The hybrid model, I believe, is critical to that as one part. As a working environment, there is a hybrid working environment, and I think that students self-discipline enough to go into the workplace, and then of course the access to practical work experience and practical equipment is always critical, and I believe that is something that we can always do better.
Yeah.
In the private and public sector.
And a word of encouragement before I let you go that you can share with the students and parents, so as not to panic but make driven solutions.
Yeah, there are options. Have options. Talk to us. Talk to everybody. Do not take anything off the table. There are certainly options for anybody that is willing and able. It's a busy time, and it's an chaotic time, but that we support. Talk to us, and there's loads of people in the industry, I think, that wants to help and that wants to help solve this.
Well, no, Mr. Leon Smalberger, thank you for taking the time to speak to us this evening on Beyond the Headlines, helping us understand the challenges and the ways we can navigate the higher education system at this point in time. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was the CEO of the Academic Institute of Excellence, helping us understand the numbers, the challenges, and ways in which parents and learners, students, perhaps at this point in time, can navigate the tricky post-high school education landscape in South Africa today. Stay with us. In just a short while, we get to see whether we get to have that conversation with the newly formed service delivery party all the way from Delmust. This is Beyond the Headlines.
Emalahleni FM will not be held liable for third-party opinions during interviews, social media comments, or other formats played on air.
Your lights down low.
So when I came in, I saw the room going